morning, good afternoon, or good evening, all of you. Welcome. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for confirming. Uh, just making sure. Vedant Chandra, is this the first time you're joining this session? Okay, no worries. We'll get started. So, as usual, we'll start with mind empowerment technique. So, we've talked many times about always thinking positive. So there's a slogan which is very dear to me. I've used it pretty much for many, many years, and it works out really good. And that slogan is pl- uh, hope for the best, plan for the worst. So we should always be positive and, hope for the best. That hope should be 98%, 95%. But we should also, at the same time, plan for the worst. So it's not about thinking negative, or many time people will plan for the worst and not have any hope at all, or they will have 100% hope for the best, and there's no room for the plan for the worst as well because they think nothing bad can happen. We need to always account for that 2% or 5% worst case scenario as well, because if you don't do that, then you're overly optimistic. So that balance is important. And that balance ratio is like 95% to 5%. So hope for the best. Hope that nothing will go wrong. But if anything goes wrong, you have a plan at that time, because that time you're not thinking how to do what to do, because at that time the mind is under immense stress. We've defined stress as too many thoughts in a short span of time is stress, and that reduces your capacity to effectively react in a positive way. So that's why it's always good to have a plan for the worst case scenario. And actually, we do the same thing when it comes to IT projects as well, because we always, as a project manager, we always have a risk plan. A good project manager will always have a risk mitigation plan. Many times, as you grow up the ladder, uh, and this is practical experience, I've seen different leaders who are very afraid of taking a decision because they're afraid that what happens if it's a wrong decision? I may lose my job. So there's fear in decision making. However, the best rule is that it's perfectly okay to take risk. It's perfectly okay to take risk as long as that risk is managed. It's perfectly okay to take risk as long as that risk is managed. And it's very important to know that, because many times leaders, they don't want to take risk because of fear of making a mistake. And that strives innovation, because you're always waiting for others to take a decision sometimes, or you're so fearful, you want to make sure you've got everything in control before you take a decision, or you're trying the situation to be the same as last time, so that way you can take a similar decision. Those are the common pitfalls where some of the leaders, and the leader could be your director, could be a CIO, could be a CEO, they will take. Sometimes even leaders of countries, governments, prime ministers, presidents, they will make the same mistake. And that mistake is the fear of making a mistake. So the best way to manage decision making is, it's okay to take a risk as long as that risk is managed. And there are several strategies for managing risk. So there's a risk mitigation plan where you identify all the possible triggers for risk, what could go wrong, and then you have a risk contingency plan. That way, if any of those scenarios occur, you know exactly what to do. You calculate the probability of each risk, and you have a risk contingency plan where you say, if this occurs, then this is what I'm going to do. If this happens, then this is what I'm going to do. So the same thing applies to life as well. Uh, Simplest thing is, greatest mistake of mankind is that we think we'll live forever. Nothing bad will happen, nothing wrong will happen. Yes, it's good to think like that, but you need to plan for the worst case. What does that practically mean is, for example, those who are married, those who have children, those who got liabilities, take out life insurance because that's a practical example of hope for the best, plan for the worst. That if something happens to you, your loved ones will be taken care of. So you're being pragmatic about it. And taking out life insurance changes your mindset. It prepares you. It starts making you think about the end. And when you start thinking about the end and you start creating an exit plan, the mind starts having a different perspective. It starts looking at things in a different way because now you're prepared. You're accepting the eventual reality that one day you will go. There's no question of if. The question is, you will. The question is, in this age of time, in this cycle of time, uh, death is unannounced. It can come any moment, it can come today itself. It doesn't wait for anyone, it doesn't give prior announcement. It can happen anytime. So it is always important. Hope for the best 95% of the time, 2 to 5% of the times, do plan for the worst. There's nothing wrong about it or saying, "Oh, you're too negative." No, it's having that good balance, which is important. It does empower the mind, and it could be decisions about your life. It could be decisions about your family. It could be decisions about your career. Uh, so, an example would be my job is so stable. Nothing is going to happen to my job. Yes, that is hoping for the best. But have you planned for the worst? What happens, if the company goes through a sudden loss? What if the company becomes bankrupt? What if the stock value drops by 30%? There's so many what if scenarios. Are you prepared for it? If not, create a plan today itself. Don't wait because time is not going to wait for you. Things will happen, as we mentioned the beginning of the year. And this is an era of uncertainty. Anything will happen unannounced, and it will happen, right? So we know that, number of wars are going to increase, just a matter of time. So are you prepared to take heavy financial losses? Are you prepared when there will be a famine that you have enough stock reserves for 6 months? Are you prepared for a rainy day scenario where you can survive without a job for 6 months? That is being practical and preparing for the worst. So it's very important that all of you are first mentally strong, prepared in the mind, then you actually make a plan because that is going to make your mind powerful. It's going to empower you to become even more stronger. So I strongly suggest that you have contingency planning in your life. You have contingency planning in your career. What happens if you lose your job? Do you have enough to survive for 6 months? Have you planned your financial reserves in such a way where you've got your finances in different buckets? Have you planned for your career that if you lose your job, your CV is up to date and ready? Are you ever ready to be prepared for anything in life? If not, what is stopping you from being ever ready? So think about it. It's okay to It's a very fearful and terrifying question when you start thinking about it for the first time. But once you think through it, it brings in a lot of clarity, and it brings in a lot of inner strength, because you're thinking from the end and then going back, and having that exit plan will definitely eventually bring a lot of comfort and peace as well. Okay. Uh, are we? Yeah, we are recording this session, right? Okay. Just want to make sure. Any questions so far? Does anyone want to share the experience from the last session, or share any of the mind empowerment techniques, or are you actually applying it? Has anyone applied any of these mind empowering techniques? Is it helping you? Because the whole purpose is that it's making a positive impact in your life. So I'll take a pause for a minute and see if anyone has any feedback. Okay, you guys are all silent today. Uh, Does anyone want to give any feedback about the previous session about ChatGPT? Did you guys try using it? Are you actively using it? I do use it a lot. It saves a lot of time. Instead of Googling, I use ChatGPT a lot, even at work. Anyone wants to share anything? Because this is not a one-way monologue in any way. This is a sharing information, sharing session. So I just want to make sure you are aware that you can always unmute yourself and just think out loud, saying, "No, I didn't like it," or "I liked it," or "I actually used it. It did help," or "It didn't help." Because that feedback allows us to, do better.
Yeah, Mukesh. So I think the last session GPT was quite insightful. There were a lot of tricks and techniques we learned. Though though as a personal, I am using ChatGPT now, even for my personal purpose, as well as my at work. But yes, that session was quite learning, and there were a couple of techniques we learned how to. In fact, the examples were very clear. If you want to apply for a certain job, how to align yourself, how to align your JV around it, and so on and so forth. So that was quite, I think, quite helpful.
Okay, great. Anyone else has
Yeah,
any other feedback?
yes,
Yes.
Mukesh. We, level we are using this, generative AI tool, to summarize, whatever, like if you want to summarize the videos and all and get the transcript so that we can save our time and go through. So that way, summarization and from video to text is so really helpful. And I have, one tool, like it's in AWS, which is shared by some AWS advocate, which probably will be we will useful for us when we are doing resume making. That's like taking out that job description and putting it into tool, and then putting your resume on the tool, and it automatically calculates it, how much it's matching, and it suggests some improvements also, and the points where you are missing out. So that's a good tool. So I'll explore that and then we'll use that.
Okay, great, Ashish. Just keep in mind that's how most of these search engine works. And that's why we keep emphasizing on having a lot of these keywords. Because if your CV is short and if it's just 2 pages, the number of keywords is going to be less. So if it's calculating a histogram of the number of keywords, so if I put a 10-page CV or a 6-page CV with a lot of those keywords versus another person having a 2-page CV, you know who the winner would be in terms of ranking that CV on a search basis. So that's why it's important to have a lot of keywords. And the best way to write those keywords is look at the job description itself and have those keywords in it.
Right,
Yes,
and probably there is one more tool is there. I mean, like if you want to realize that what exactly is are asking for, let's say for data architect role, and there might be number of companies with different roles. And, there is some tool which whatever open pages like web scraping, scrap all the job descriptions, and probably need to find out how we can plug that into job matching tool. That way we can instantly we can get like out of 50 or 100 jobs, we can match that or get the exact how what's actually companies are looking for. So it will be not based on one job description, it will be based on multiple job descriptions.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ashish. I think someone else also wanted to give
yeah,
feedback.
yes. Actually, recently I've started using ChatGPT. So it's quite helpful actually. Matlab very helpful actually. Before we do any searching actually, do Google actually. But in ChatGPT, you find lot of things in one place actually and in proper format. So yeah, it's quite useful. And at the same time, I would like to say that mind empowering technique actually. So what I'm using these days. Previously, I had always in chaos because I had lot of loans in my name. So I always feel and fear factor if my job goes away, then what will happen to my the EMIs and all those things. And that actually creating a lot of anxiety and pressure in your mind actually. And there is no backup plan what to do if job goes away. So there is no answer to the mind that what I will do after that. And then I stopped acquiring because I had a tendency to acquiring lot of things, matlab, accumulating things. So I started now less expecting and doing less stuff, matlab necessary stuffs I'm doing, not unnecessary stuffs I'm doing. And that way also, and not extending any loans. If I don't have any necessary stuff to buy, then I don't buy anything. Instead, I have money with me, but I never use matlab, for unnecessary stuffs. So by that way, I feel these days very relaxed actually, and I paid up my own loans, so that I feel kind of bit relaxed these days, and I don't buy anything unnecessary stuffs. So yeah, that is quite matlab, giving relaxing to the mind.
Thank you, Damayanti, for sharing. So I hope.
Can I go for another minute, Mukesh?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, I started using ChatGPT from November itself. That means from the first the Power AI class itself. I find it very useful. I am a bit slow in doing things. For example, if I have to search for some technical thing on any language, C++ or whatever, when you search on Google, it gives so many links. So I have to go through the link and see which one suits my requirement. In case of ChatGPT, I can refine my query and it gives in one place. So it's easy and it saves my time a lot. And I'm so thankful for the guy Ashish who presented this, and it's really useful to me. Thank you.
Yeah, so glad to hear that, Ramesh. So,
Mukesh, I want to just add one more
Yes.
thing.
Please
I just
do.
want to understand means what would be impact in near future in market, because if a organization allowed to use the ChatGPT or native AI, so obviously it will impact that means opportunities or some jobs, how it will impact that one, because now that all help is available on that ChatGPTs and now native AI also. So how it will be impact that job generation as well as means the professional life is.
That's an
Hello, am I
excellent
audible?
question. Yes, that's an excellent question, Tapesh. I'm glad you asked that because I get that question asked many times. So, the simple answer is it's the survival of the fittest here being most adaptable. So, will ChatGPT impact the way we do things? Absolutely. But that does not imply it will eliminate all kinds of IT jobs. there's a fear, oh, IT won't be there because ChatGPT will take over everything. No, it cannot. For example, uh, the example was shown that, oh, how to fix my bike. There are a lot of examples on LinkedIn where there was a car accident. The car is in a bad shape. You give that picture to ChatGPT and say, can you fix the car? There's no way it can fix that car. You still need a car mechanic, right? Similarly, when it comes to health, ChatGPT can be a good assistant, right? So it can be a very good assistant to the nurse, to the doctor, but it can't all the way eliminate them, because one of the biggest drawbacks at the moment of ChatGPT is hallucination. Because if you understand the technology, how it works, it's taking uh, those tokens, and it's finding, what is most commonly used and the probability of it, and it's learning those as well. So because of that, it hallucinates. It will make up things that you never told it, right? Because it's combining these words and creating that text. And so there have been studies where in the medical field, the person was giving symptoms. When it took the notes, it added that the person had a headache, because most of the people, who had similar symptoms had a headache. Now, in reality, this person may have forgotten to say it was a headache, or that they didn't have a headache, right? But ChatGPT added to it, which is quite dangerous, because when it comes to medical stuff, right, if it's making assumptions, then it could lead to a wrong diagnosis. So in the medical field, you can't use ChatGPT to give advice. It has to be assisted, and it's a very good assistant. So ChatGPT, for many cases, it's a good assistant as such. Some of the jobs, like when it comes to coding, uh, so usually many times they'll ask you this in their interview. They'll say, are you hands-on? And in the past, when they used to ask that question, I used to hesitate at first, because I haven't coded in past 15 years. Am I going to say that in the interview? Absolutely not. I say yes. So when they ask, are you hands-on? There was a little bit sense of nervousness in that voice. Now, since ChatGPT has come, say, are you hands-on? I say absolutely, all the time. The reason is because ChatGPT can write code for you. So recently there was a project in which I was asked to write a lot of code snippets in it, and I got pretty good for it. All I did was I got it from ChatGPT, right? So it does help you in a way, if you know how to use it properly, and if you know when to use it and how to use it. Of course, I didn't take it as it is and pasted it. I changed few things here and there. And the effectiveness of ChatGPT comes on how you prompt it. So if you're really good at prompt engineering, you can use ChatGPT to its true power. So I had to prompt ChatGPT in 5 or 6 different ways, and then combine those code snippets and submit it, right? And then I got paid pretty good for it. But it wasn't that, oh, it was so easy enough that I can just ask ChatGPT in one question and it will write the code for it. For example, it won't, when you are asking for it to write code, it won't write secure code, right? But then you have to say, okay, now make this code secure, right? Make sure it's proof, it doesn't, it'll withstand a SQL injection attack, or, it has logic in it. So that way you're authenticating the user before you do it, or whatever you need to do. So you have to prompt it, right? So coming back to your question, uh, would it eliminate jobs? It's going to make jobs easier in a way rather than eliminating, right? Because uh, in IT, it's always about people, process, technology. Always remember, it's about people, process, technology. You can have a great technology, but if you don't have the right people who know it, understand it, if you don't have the right process for it, the effectiveness of that technology is severely diminished, right? An example is testing, right? Uh, there are a lot of test automation frameworks. Even though those test automation framework can, automate a lot of the testing, but you have to invest upfront. A lot of companies don't do that. So the tool is there, but yet they don't do that because you have to invest in the tool. You still have to do upfront investment, and they'll rather prefer doing manual testing. I think we had someone from with a testing background. I don't remember the person's name. Do we have
Puneet,
anyone
I
with a
think.
testing background?
Yeah, I
Puneet?
have.
Yeah. Do you want to add to it? Is that a true statement? Like, even though there's an
Yes,
automation framework, there is still a lot of manual testing.
yes. Actually, I'm from also testing team, but yeah, so there are a lot of people are there testers. They don't even willing to learn the coding aspect actually, and they are very flexible in doing manual testing.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So point is, the technology is there, the tool is there, but companies are not investing in it, right? So yes, it can do a lot of things, but companies need to invest in it, right? So
No,
a good company,
companies investing, but people are not willing to go that level because they are back like they are having 10 to 15 year experience and they are not willing to go up actually. So
right,
people are that
right. So
sense.
yeah, so a lot of times companies will have to say, okay, I'm going to add consultants who will do it, or I'm going to upskill my employees to do it, or I'm going to get a tool to do it. So there's a lot that can be done, but in spite of having the tools, uh, testing is not automated. So technology is there, but whatever reason it's not being adopted. So there will always be cases. Yes, Chat GPT can do everything, or it can write coding for you and everything. That does not imply companies will do it, because they'll always have a fear mindful set. Oh, what if it will make mistake? Like cloud, right? The cloud adoption, cloud has been there for like 15 years. Not every company adopted it on day one, because every time there's a disruption, like a new technology, it's disruptive. Like cloud is disruptive because people thought, well, there will be no need of DBAs, and infrastructure engineers will be obsolete because everything will be on the cloud. You no longer need infrastructure engineers. Reality is, yes, the number of infrastructure jobs decreased, but those who adapted, those who learned cloud, they actually now get paid more than what they were getting paid before as an infrastructure engineer or as an infrastructure architect. So it's always a question of how you look at technology as an enabler instead of opposing it. There's no point opposing it, because those decisions are never in your hand. Those are taken at the senior level. So what you can do, the smartest thing to do, is not to worry about what will happen to my job, what should I do, will these jobs exist or not. The smartest thing to is, every time there's a new technology and there's a disruption, minor disruptions every 4 years, and a major disruption once in a decade. That's the trend, right? Technology will change. So you need to adapt to it. You need to embrace it. You need to learn it, right? And not worry about, oh, will there be jobs in it or not? Yes, you need to be pragmatic and understand what the impact is. But ChatGPT is not going to, replace everything. If you learn that technology, understand it, it will actually be an enabler. It will help you do your job better. The other trend is, most of the products companies like Salesforce, Pega, right, SAP, Tableau, right? They are embracing that technology and integrating it in the product, which is a very positive thing, because you don't have to, write a lot of code and all to do that. Practical example is, and ChatGPT has an impact. It's directly linked and aligned with data architecture. So we'll cover that as well. So, for example, when you're doing reporting in a data-driven organization, you want to make decisions based on the data, right? You want to open a new store, but on what basis are you opening a new store, and is that the right location? So you'll say, well, there's a lot of population growth in this area, but my sales growth is not proportional, because I'm too far away from it. There's no public transportation, or there are 10 new communities over here, and it's really far away from here. So there's a lot of potential over here, and my growth is not proportional to the population demographic growth in this particular area. But to justify that, you need those numbers. So when you do those number crunching, you'll say, okay, this is the type of demographic, 10 new communities have come up. This is what it is. You can make that decision. You can validate that decision. In reality, those decisions are very intuitive. They may not be based on facts, but based on impressions, right? So a lot of organizations, they want to make their decision making, improve their decision making based on the data. So that's called as a data driven organization. So we as data architects, we want to enable business to be more data driven, right? We are calculating those metrics, those key performance indicators or KPIs to become a data driven organization. For that, they want to bring all this data into their data lake and do reporting on it. Reporting tools like Tableau. Previously, we would write the SQL queries to say, okay, which is the best performing store in this region, or which is the best performing bank in this region, whatever that question is. But you had to write SQL queries and hard code it and create that dashboard. What ChatGPT is enabling to do now is, instead, because business always wants to do self-service, the whole purpose of IT for businesses is an enabler. It's helping automate. But business takes too long to be an enabler and automate. So if I have to create a new report, it takes 3 to 6 months. That is way too slow for business. They want this report like next day. So the trend is business wants to do self-service. They don't want IT to do it, right? But in this case, they don't know SQL. So they are relying on someone with SQL knowledge to create that dashboard or report which says, okay, which was the best performing store during Christmas and so on. So now with tools with Power BI and Tableau, NLP, natural language processing, using LLM, large language models. So LLM is what powers ChatGPT. So they are integrating that in the reporting front end tool. So instead of writing a SQL query, now you can write an English language query, best performing tool in this particular postcode. It's not a SQL query. It will get the answer back to you. It's taking that natural English language, translating it into a SQL query, running that data and giving you back. So what's happening is that products, they are integrating LLMs, not necessarily ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT is using an LLM model, right, to do that. But organizations, they are experimenting with different LLM models. They are even large organization with a lot of funds. They are experimenting with creating their own LLM models so they can control the information that is being fed in to avoid the hallucination problem. And they want to integrate it into their products, right? So that's what the trend is. So you will find more and more products that are more chat GPT like enabled, which will make your job easier, right? Another example is when it comes to data integration tools for batch. What is the batch data integration tool called? The question. Anyone wants to answer?
Mukesh, good morning.
Yes.
I wanted to add one thing. So, recently, I was asked to create, not workflow, that is chart, flow chart. So I was going through the net and I found a similar tool called Code to Flow, right? So this is an app which basically where we write, means I write logic in a English like language, and on the right side it creates that flow chart for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of tools are going to come up. So for batch-based integration, ETL tools, right? They are also using Gen AI or ESBs. So Dell Boomi, uh, they are investigating how to use Gen AI to make searching data easier. Right? So right now, there are data catalogs. I don't know if we talked about data catalogs, but a data catalog is nothing but a catalog of all the data sources or data domains. Person or customer is a data domain, right? You can have customers, all information under that data domain. So where that customer information is federated across multiple data sources, the data catalog will give that information to you. The challenge in the past with data catalog was that they get obsolete fairly quickly. So most of these data catalogs nowadays have data crawlers which will go and fetch that information. But then again, you have to write a query to get information from a data catalog, and that query is very specific to that tool, or it's more SQL friendly. It's not English language friendly as such. So there is more and more natural language capabilities built into tools to capture and collect and provide that metadata in a more natural language linguistic way. So that is the trend. So does that mean data architecture jobs will go away? No. If you embrace ChatGPT, if you understand how LLMs work, if you understand what are vector databases and so on, you will be very effective in helping the organization adopt ChatGPT. So to answer your question, Tapish, sorry, I gave you a very,
Yes,
very long
Sandeep. Yes,
answer. The
yes, I
answer
get
is don't fear it, embrace it.
Yeah.
So that's the long answer to your short question.
No, why I asked because in my one of my colleague means data architect stuck in somewhere, and he took around 3 days to implement that logic. But some other technical manager used ChatGPT and provided that solution through that ChatGPT. Now
Yeah.
the management is finger pointing their performance, so that's why I am asking this
Yeah. Yeah.
question,
No,
and
no.
they
So
are
you have to use the
comparing that.
technology. Yeah, absolutely. You have to use this technology as an enabler, as a good assistant, right? And you have to be smart in a way where you're using it, but you're not really disclosing it in a way. Many times, organizations don't want you to use it, but you can use it from your personal way, right? So it's being smart about validating or knowing what it is to do it. So use it. I've been using it for a long time, maybe over a year or so. I don't remember, but I've been using it for a long time. I use it to validate certain of my assumptions. I use it to accelerate my learning. So if I have a question, previously I had to go through a lot of documentation to understand, is this true? Now I just ask ChatGPT, but I do always verify what ChatGPT answers, especially if I'm using that information at work and I'm not disclosing that I'm using ChatGPT. I always do validate it. So that's something to be aware of. Don't blindly trust ChatGPT. Always take that extra effort to validate it, right? Because otherwise, you could even lose your job because of ChatGPT, because there's no guarantee it's accurate. So just be mindful of that. So embrace it, use it properly, invest in it. It's worth the investment, but with a little bit of uh, caution, right? So optimistic, but 5% caution that it's not accurate and it can give you even your wrong answer in some cases.
There's just a couple of sentences to add about the test automation and ChatGPT and all. I don't think ChatGPT and test automation will help in a lot of ways in engineering companies. Like for example, my project has 6 million lines of code. If somebody has to maintain, I don't know how much ChatGPT will help in that. It may be useful in writing code when we start, but to maintain, I don't know how much it will be useful. And test automation in this kind of data architecture, these kind of things may be useful, but in engineering companies, we have to write a hardware, embedded software, application software, all these integrated. So I don't know how much test automation tools will be useful in this case. We try to use, but it didn't help much.
So
Thanks.
those challenges will continue to exist, right? When it comes to code maintenance, ChatGPT says, "Oh, okay, go and replace this module with this code." How confident you will be that it won't break anything? I would be very skeptical, right? I won't go and just use it to replace it, right? Because it can break a lot of things. So you don't use it blindly. The message is use it, right, as an assistive tool. But don't blindly say, oh, this is the answer I got from ChatGPT. I'm going to use it, right? And reduced my work. It actually adds to the work, but effectively still I'm doing it faster because it's a lot better than doing a Google search and going through 5, 6 pages trying to find for that answer. So once I get the answer, then I validate it. So use ChatGPT as an assistant, validate the answers that you get from ChatGPT, then use it. That way, you'll still save time, but you will come out very confident with the answer because you validated it. So that's the message. Okay, I think we deviated a little bit, but it's good because it directly has an impact on data architecture as well. Since we are on this topic, what I'll do is we'll continue as a data architect, what it is that you need to do so that your organization is able to take advantage of ChatGPT. Let's cover that in a brief way, because I think this would be very much of importance to Dinesh. And usually where we are in the industry is that organizations are trying to explore, going through a discovery phase. Every time there's a new technology, that's what organizations will do. They will have a discovery phase to explore different use cases for that technology, right? So organizations are trying to innovate and see how we can use ChatGPT-like tools, right? Like large language models. Uh, Ashish, I don't know if Ashish covered LangChain and other tools, but there are a lot of other complementary tools if you were to use or integrate ChatGPT APIs into your application. But organizations want to do that discovery, identify that use cases, and see, is your data architecture built in a way to support those ChatGPT like use cases? Right? They will ask you this question. It could be an interview question as well. How would you architect your systems so that way it makes it easier for organizations to enable ChatGPT use cases? That if I was interviewing, I would ask this question just to see, are you up to date with knowledge and do you have good understanding of the fundamentals of data architecture? I want you to think, I will give you the answer, but I want you to think along with me, because what is important is not the answer. What is important is the thinking process, how we are thinking, because we discussed in our previous session, confidence doesn't come by knowing answers to all the questions. You will say, these are 10 questions. Once I know all the answers to these 10 questions, I will be confident. Doesn't work, because someone will come up with 11th question, which you didn't prepare for. Then you will be like, my confidence was broken. So confidence doesn't come with knowing answers to all the questions. Confidence comes from within when you know that you can find answers to all the questions, even though you don't know any of those answers, right? So you'll say, well, they will ask you this in the interview as well, how confident you are when you're designing something, or in general, they'll say, I am very confident of myself, that even though I don't know the answer, I will be able to find the answer. And I'm sure I will make mistakes, but with your support, I will make sure that I will be able to make a positive contribution. I intentionally added that I will make mistakes because you want to be humble. You don't want to be arrogant and say, I can do everything. That is overconfident. So you want to balance it. So how do we get that confidence to answer every question, even when you don't have the answer, right? It is because you know the art of finding that answer. That art of finding the answer is confidence. So ChatGPT helps you in that art of finding the answer, right? You're going to refer to books. You got LibGen, right? You got that link now. You know that if you want to see a case study, if you want to really get into the depth of it, you can download any book now. You can look at YouTube videos, right? You can look ChatGPT. You can download the tool and learn with itself. So you know how to find those answers, even though you may not know the answer. That is confidence. So they will ask you this question, is your architecture built and designed in a way so that you can support ChatGPT use case? And say yes, it does, right? But thinking process is important. So what do you think would be the key enablers in a data architecture platform which would support ChatGPT type use cases? I want you to think. Right, wrong doesn't matter, because that thinking process will help you get rid of the fear. And if it's not right, we'll correct it. No wrong in, there's nothing wrong in giving the incorrect answer or not the best answer, right? So I want you to think. What do you think are the fundamental building blocks or enablers in the data architecture to support ChatGPT like use cases? I want you to think and answer.
One would be to enable our internal IT organization as well as business organization to create ChatGPT and get the answers with regards to like metadata. Like business users, it will be very helpful for them to the metadata, where exactly that information is storing, how it's storing, what's the source, all these chat or analysis capabilities that ChatGPT can provide to them, so they'll quickly get to the right data with the right usage. That's one.
Yeah, getting closer. Yes.
And second, I mean, in general, how we can think over this is like when us this Dharma circle. In each area, we need to think loud how the area can be supported by this, like one metadata I. Similarly, we can think of each, like for data security, how it can help. Maybe for data governance or policies, we can provide we can ensure that it's following the right, like APR and all these things. We can have this metadata placed over there for ChatGPT. It can provide us whether part of the system are following that or not. It's complying to the compliances of that particular.
Yeah, that's a good attempt. Anyone else wants to add anything or
Yeah.
answer that in a different way?
Yeah, I think the first and foremost requirement would be to how to ingest unstructured data.
Excellent. That is a perfect way to think, because you're building those interfaces, your data sources, if they are all structured. Now you've got, unstructured or linguistic data that is unstructured. It doesn't have an index to it, or it doesn't have a primary ID column to it. So one of the key fundamental building blocks is the ability to store unstructured data, right? That is like absolutely must. And I'll elaborate on it, but that is a key capability. Now, we covered NoSQL databases. Not every organization till today has adopted NoSQL databases. So organizations are very slow in adopting new technologies, right? So ChatGPT, like cloud, it took about 5 years to mature. I think in one of the sessions we covered the Gartner's hype quadrant, where you saw that curve. There's a peak and then there's a slope of enlightenment. And it applies to every new disruptive technology, whether minor disruptive or big, whether it was blockchain, whether it's Gen AI or anything. It goes through that slope of enlightenment through the peak of illusion, right? Where you have too much expectations out of the technology, and then those expectations are busted, and you're like, oh, it doesn't do this. I thought it would do that, right? And it goes through a further sense of maturity. So same way over here, right? You need to first make sure that you are storing that unstructured data or structured data in NoSQL databases. That would be one of the fundamental capabilities. Another aspect to cover is privacy of the data. So as you know, I'm not sure if you are aware of it or not, there are a lot of lawsuits against OpenAI company for ChatGPT. Are you guys aware of the lawsuits?
Yeah, recently New York Times had sued OpenAI.
Exactly. It's very important to understand the dynamics, right? Why did they get sued? Because what was the underlying data source for building that LLM, right? The underlying data source was all Google, right? All material on the open, right? And their logic was, because it's out in the open, I can use it as it is, right? Well, that logic doesn't work. Facebook used to apply that same logic. Australia told them, no, that logic doesn't work. If you're using content from other places, just because it's freely available does not mean you just copy and start using it, because all those contents which look freely available have a legal disclaimer on their website saying you can only use it for personal individual uses, right? Look at all the websites, it's there. It's there over there, especially the news outlet. So Facebook got a lawsuit with the Australian government, and Australia said, no, you either comply to our laws or you get out. So Facebook said, okay, fine, I'm leaving Australia, right? Because they said, I can't, if I can't take content from these news organization and put it on as Facebook post, and if I have to pay for it, then, it's a lot of change for me. No one allows that, but I'm going to do that. So Australia won, and now they are back into Australia, and they are kind of agreeing to it. EU started doing the same thing. So the fundamental principle in place is that yes, it is there publicly open, but it was always meant for individual use, not for someone to mine that data and use it for other things. OpenAI actually used that data without permission and build the LLM out of it. Right? So why do you need that unstructured data? Well, if you want to mine that data, right, you want to build your own LLM, you want to have the guardrails around it, or whatever you want to do based on the use cases, the first thing you need to do is you identify the sources of that unstructured data, email being a very good source, your customer interaction notes, right, which you're capturing, are another good source of that unstructured data, and you need to store it in a way that you can mine that information. If you want to build an LLM using that as a data source, from a data architecture perspective, you're enabled to capture that, right? So that's why that question was very important, because you need to have a data source which allows you to store semi-structured or linguistic data, or unstructured data as such. So they got into the lawsuit because they didn't take permission, right? So organizations, when they start using it, right, they are making sure OpenAI contracts say that if whatever lawsuits OpenAI has done, it's the responsibility of OpenAI. When we are using OpenAI, we are not liable for any losses, right? That's what organizations need to do. Second is, if they need to build their own LLMs, they need to have those data sources. Whatever information is that's collected in those data sources needs to be acquired in a legitimate way. So there are new products coming up in the market which allow you to capture and gather that information so that you can build your own LLM, right? So LLM, I'm assuming, I couldn't attend the last week's session. I did attend for a few minutes. But LLM is large language model, and it's basically the technology on how you're breaking the words in a sentence. That word becomes a token. How you're how much text are you using to create those tokens? So the more the number of tokens, which means you've trained it with a lot of data. So the size of the model in terms of 184 billion tokens and so on, the larger the size, the more training it has gone through, will give you an indication of how well that LLM is trained. So organizations, they want to control, they've got a lot of data. They don't want to share it. They want to build their own LLM. That is one trend. It's very expensive. That's why NVIDIA stock has gone up 5 times. Those who invested in it made a lot of money. But NVIDIA is powering that revolution because its chips are used in calculating and computing of that LLM. Right. So coming back to the question, what are the enabling technologies? You need to make sure you capture that data. You have the consent to use that data, right? And then many times there are privacy. We discussed data privacy in one of the sessions. Even if you want to tokenize the data, right? Or you don't want to make sure, the person's name is there, but you want to understand from those notes. So there is a technique, a very simple trick to do that. So the way, I'm simplifying this to a very large extent. The way the LLM works is, right, it takes a sentence, right? I'm going home, right? So it has 3 tokens, I am going home. So actually 4, right? And then, it will say, okay, which of them is a verb? Which of them, is an organization? So there's something called as entity recognition, and say, I is this person. It will split it up and, do that analysis. Long story short, if instead of I, there was this person's name, Mukesh is going home. Now there's, there could be PII in it as well. But when it's splitting that token, right, and it can store a combination of these tokens or these tokens in what's called as a vector database. So the information that lands up in the vector database doesn't have the PII. So then you can use that data because it's de-identified data. So even if you didn't have the consent, it's okay because you're not really using that individual's information to build a model or anything. So instead of taking that raw data as it is, you take that raw data, process it, you create what's called as feature vectors, and you store them in a vector database. So there are different types of vector databases. That's like very new. They didn't exist 5-6 years back. I mean, they did exist, but no one actually used them. There were not that many commercial products, but there are new commercial products coming up in the market under the category of vector databases. And essentially, it's nothing but what is a vector, right? Vector, we studied in school or in college, right? You have, let's say, if I have a two-dimensional vectors, x-axis, y-axis, I'll have 2 values. So it's a vector, right? But usually in machine learning, you don't have just 2 dimensions, right? You have n dimensions. N could be 10, 20, 50, 100 as well, right? 100, nothing wrong with that. So you have large dimension vectors, 100 dimension. You don't have to visualize it like, oh, how does 100 dimension mean? It's just a way of how the math works. So it's very common anytime when you're doing machine learning, AI type of calculation, you will do what's called as a feature vector. And there are these feature stores or vector databases. So I'm throwing new terms at you because now we are going at a more advanced level using that AI tool and saying how to enable our data architecture so that we are prepared to do AI, Gen AI, right? Handle those type of use cases. So one is, ability to capture semi-structured, unstructured data using NoSQL databases. Second is ability to store those feature vectors in a feature store or in vector databases, right? Third thing is you want to consolidate all your data in one place. Because if you're going to train your algorithm, and if your data is all scattered over, you can't train it properly. So most of the organizations, right, we did discuss this in one of the sessions, there are 2 strategies for collecting the data. You either consolidate the data on a data lake, or you keep the data federated or scattered all over and you virtualize it. And we discussed that the most common one is data consolidation. So you do need to consolidate the data. So whatever your architecture is, data goes from transactional system to ODS to data lake, right? And from there, you're consuming it for multiple use cases. But it's essential that you consolidate all your data in the data lake. And there you can store it in different formats. It could be in object storage like AWS S3 or Azure Blob or GCP bucket. That's object storage. Or it could be in a feature store, or it could be in a vector database, or it could be in a cloud data warehouse like Snowflake. But it's coming from that raw layer from the data lake, right? As long as you have that, you fundamentally enable the organization to be able to use that data for analytics use cases, including Gen AI. Does that answer make sense? Is everyone following what it is, or I want to make sure, if I have to repeat it, I would be glad to. But I want to make sure you're following why we are doing it, how we are doing it, and what that thinking process is.
So what we get from your explanation is that you want to design an data architecture, which, which we can leverage these new technologies like LLM and ChatGPT and do analysis based on that. So we need to ensure, like that's what you told us. One is, capture semi structured or unstructured data, and you need to ensure that we are, following all these privacy based aspects. Then we have some tool like when we are de-identifying these, PI data. And actually, all data should be in one place in whatever form we have, that we can do the complete analysis on the holistic data.
Your summarization technique, I think, is above par what ChatGPT summarizes. Thanks, Ashish. You summarized it extremely well. Okay.
But Mukesh, one thing, like this is what we need to design.
Yeah.
Do we have anything like, what will be the the use case came out of this is the analysis only, whatever analytics you want to do over that
Yeah.
too in a data lake.
Yeah. So let's take some practical use cases, right? So one of the use cases is, which is like whenever you're going through the use cases, right? We categorize the use cases in terms of high, medium, low effort. And the low hanging fruit is least amount of effort, maximum gain to business, right? So we create a matrix and saying, okay, for this use case, what is the complexity of this use case? How feasible it is to implement it? What is the value that it provides and the effort it would take to implement it? So we go through the laundry list of use cases. We rank them and sort them to identify maximum value, least effort. That is called as a low hanging fruit. We identify those use cases, and then we go use cases by use cases to see, validate that the architecture supports it. So one of the example is ability for business to do self-service. Right. So Dinesh can tell you a lot of the organizations, they constantly have this demand, right? They want business. There's a trend called low code, no code, right? They don't want any SQL code. They don't want ability to, have IT involved in it. They want to create reports themselves without knowing SQL. So that's one good example where you want to empower your business, right? Just like, when we have children, we empower them. We don't, nowadays, you can't tell children, do this, do that. Gone are those days, but you empower them by giving the tools. Exactly the same thing. You can't tell business, oh, this is what I'm going to do for you, right? They are saying, I'm funding you. So you empower them and you give them the tools. So the good thing is, because different products like Salesforce, like Power BI, they are incorporating Gen AI in their interfaces. That is a good example of a low hanging fruit where without doing much, you can actually say we are using Gen AI now, right? So that's one good example where you can integrate it in your front end without actually doing anything, because the tool has that capability. So you don't have to make any change in your architecture or anything, because you're already using a reporting tool, right? And most of the two most popular reporting tools are Power BI and Tableau. Both of them support NLP. So it makes it very easier to say we've already embraced Gen AI. Right? That's one use case. Another use case is conversational AI. So conversational AI is nothing but a chat bot where you are conversing with the other person. The other person really doesn't know that who you are conversing is actually not a human. It's a chat GPT like agent, which is giving you the questions and answers. So those who are interested in working on a project like this, and those who are involved in a separate WhatsApp group, we have a project to be able to build that conversational AI uh, as well. And we're looking at Gen AI and Chat GPT. So those who are interested in kind of working on that, please do contact me as well, because of course it's a project related with Brahma Kumaris. So of course it's not paid, you get rewarded in terms of mental satisfaction, but no monetary as such. But the experience and what you're learning in that process itself is very fulfilling. Sorry, I'm deviating, but I thought I'll share that information for those who are not aware. But one of the other use cases is conversational AI. So the problem with ChatGPT is that you can use it to drive that conversation, but again, hallucination is a problem. So there are different products, Core.ai. There are different open source engines. Microsoft has a product called Azure Bot. So previously we were using a tool called open source tool called Rasa, RASA. Very popular. That's how we supported conversational AI, where it was querying databases using APIs. It was using APIs, it was using databases to query that information and have that conversation. Now, that conversational AI needs to be augmented with Gen AI. And Gen AI needs to be integrated with APIs and with databases. Currently, it doesn't do that, right? It's just using the LLM model. For this technology to really be included in the mainstream, what it's lacking is that, you know, the LLM is like a data source. Think of it from that perspective. But your organization has a lot of other data sources, and that data is captured across different data sources. So if you have a data consolidation strategy, now you've got all your data consolidated on the data lake. But that's a very valuable data source, rich of information, rich of customer interaction, rich of customer history. It has a lot of good data to it. And you need to use that data. So in addition to an LLM, you need to use those data to drive that conversation. So if I want to say, well, you know, can you recommend me which product should I buy for an indoor swimming pool? And you'll say, well, there's an inflatable swimming pool. Or you can look at their past history and say, in the past, you bought this size. Did you have good experience with it? Or are you looking for a bigger one? Or are you looking for something different, right? So I can make that conversation more richer by tapping into that data source. LLM doesn't do that, right? It will just say, okay, you know, use this inflatable swimming pool, because it doesn't know what you actually bought in the past. So what organizations want to do is they want to use multiple data sources, LLM being one of the data engines, be able to integrate and orchestrate that information to have a very positive, impactful, meaningful conversation. That's what the primary use case is, one of the use cases is. So in that case, again, you know, the key is consolidate your data in one place, right? Make sure you have APIs, because when you're integrating with your application, you want to make sure you can integrate it using APIs, right? So we discussed data integration. So you can easily share your data using APIs. So you build a data hub where you can support multiple use cases, including descriptive business intelligence type cases, advanced analytics type of cases, Gen AI type of cases, API exposing data as a service cases, reporting use cases, Power BI, and so on. So you want to use that data for multiple use cases from that data platform. That is the strategy. So from that perspective, if you got your data in one place, then using it for AI or Gen AI is no different, right? It's the same way. So go through those use cases, identify the hanging fruit, understand, do I need vector databases, or are we already using a feature store? Understand it, and then you can come up with a recommendation as such. But that's the approach, right? So again, I may not know all the answers, but using that approach, we can get to that answers, which will give you confidence that yes, you can evolve your data strategy to support Gen AI type use cases. Does that answer the question, or does that bring in clarity? Okay. So since we've got few minutes left, what I'll do is I wanted to quickly go over that Dharma circle to do a quick check on how far we've come along in terms of our data architecture. Try to see if I can share that screen, or if anyone has that diagram handy. If you go to the gamma.org, there's a circle over there, and this was last updated in 2017. What I want to share with you is what's practical, what's not practical, what is missing in that circle. So I wanted to discuss that today. So I think we've got a few minutes. We should be able to wrap that up. Has everyone seen that circle that I'm referring to? I had posted it on the WhatsApp group. By the way, I'm assuming that all of you are part of the data architecture WhatsApp group, because we do a lot of postings over there. So if not, please contact Sanjeev Gupta or Brother Sanjeev Gupta Bhaiji or myself to get access to that WhatsApp group. So that way you can interact and post your questions as well. So is everyone aware of that circle? Am I audible? Okay, good. Sometimes I'm not, so I just want to make sure. Okay, so let me, I'm on the phone actually, so I'm not sure if it'll allow me to share it. Would anyone be able to share it, or I'm not sure if you have sharing permission? I wanted to share that circle. Okay.
Give me permission, I can share.
Yeah, if you have permission, Ashish, or anyone can
No,
share.
no, I don't have.
You don't have permission? Okay, that's fine. Has anyone not seen that circle? Let me ask in a reverse way. Because I'm a visual person, I have it in my head, but everyone's mind works in a different way. So I want to make sure, if it's handy and if you have it in front of you. My apologies, I didn't join from the laptop. I think even I don't have share permission. Let me see. Prashant, I'm not sure if you can hear us. I was wondering if you can share a link if I post it on the chat window. Prashant, is that possible? Okay, let me paste that link, because then that way we can share it. Just let me paste it on the link.
So you want me to open this, Mukesh?
Yes. Yeah, can we open this? And there is a place over there where it has the diagram. By the way, I just want to thank Prashant. He's always there in the background, starting these sessions 15 minutes before. He conducted the cloud architecture sessions. He can tell you a lot about how AWS is providing Gen AI capabilities. Prashant, I don't know if you have time, but would love to hear your perspective, what all is there, because Prashant is there he's a silent worker. He doesn't get any credit. But I just want to acknowledge it that, he's starting the one session on time. If it was me, we would be late always. So he makes sure everyone is on time. Session is started, recording, publishing it on YouTube. So he does a lot of hard work. So I just want to thank him again for his
Thanks,
silent
Mukesh.
background work.
Thanks, Dr. Mukesh. Actually, I also agree with you on this generative AI and all of these new things that have emerged out. So I personally use it myself a lot, because that basically helps you reduce a lot of efforts and a lot of time. What you will do in maybe in 8 hours, you may be able to do it within 1 or 2 hours. So that is the advantage and creativity of using such artificial intelligence tools. And that would be a really great effort if our team members who have joined today can also explore, because they will also be able to expedite and learn things quickly and do things quickly.
Prashant, do you want to elaborate just 2 minutes, what Gen AI capabilities are available on AWS?
So on AWS, like we have this new service which has been launched, AWS Bedrock. So what it provides is, so all the major artificial intelligence models Anthropic and all, and I don't have a huge knowledge about the AI models, but every model that is basically worked out by Facebook or any major company is made publicly available through that service, and you can use your model to basically train your applications or use cases which are AI based to basically work upon a lot of huge database and generate good insights and serve your end requirements. So that is one service which was in beta mode, but that has been made public. And there are other emerging technologies as well, wherein Amazon has recently launched Amazon Q. So Q is basically a very simple service wherein you can directly connect Amazon Q service with your repositories of data. So if you have a lot of source data in your Quips or Excels or any folder, you can directly connect that with that, and you can just converse with the help of Amazon Q. For example, let's say if you are a company who deals in ethics and compliances, and you have a lot of documentation, let's say a huge GBs and terabytes of data in your compliance and ethics documentation. So if you want to identify, okay, what are the security practices followed in this particular organization? Is this a very valid guideline I should adhere to? How do you get to know such insights quickly? So you can just mention your conversation in Amazon Q, and it will search through that whole database which you have connected with that, and it will bring out all those appropriate insights in front of you within a while only, and you will be able to understand okay, what were the related things with respect to the question that I had asked. So there are multiple more services which we may see in coming future, but yeah, for now I think these are some of the services.
Great. Thanks for sharing, Prashant. So what I would suggest is, take a look at it. Look at feature stores. Look at vector databases. Next session, you can say, this is what something new I learned, right? You may not want to apply for a job, something very restrictive, but it's good to put that because it shows you are on the top of technology. In the best interest of time, we'll quickly go through this circle and see if you can
So
point out what it is that
I
we've
did
not.
open the page. Are you able to
Yeah,
see?
I think, yeah, there was a circle showing up on that screen before. So I don't know who was showing it, but I could see the circle before.
Sorry, I thought.
I shared.
Oh, oh, so we have permissions to share. Anyone can share?
Yeah, I think people have permissions.
Okay, that's great then. That's great. So whoever was sharing it, I think that's the diagram. But yeah, if you wanted under publications, there is that diagram as well. So if you click on publications, yeah, this is that diagram. I think Ashish was sharing it. So I want to see, if you are aware of what is not there, but let's go through it to a quick check because this is like, I don't know, 11 session, how many sessions we had? I don't remember.
Yes, it's 11th.
11 sessions. So we've been doing this for 2.5 months now. If you think about it in a logical way, it's just what, 11 sessions is like 15 to 16 hours worth of information. But we've covered a lot, right? And what is rest is the practical application through case studies. But the theory, we are almost there. And I'll tell you what's remaining and what's missing in this diagram. So let's start from the center. So we talked a little bit about data governance, right? Let's use this in a positive way. What, if any of you can answer or say even one line about it, that's good enough. Does anyone remember what we talked about data governance or what is data governance? Or do you remember we talked about it?
Yes.
Yes. By the
data collected for the company, by the company to use.
Yeah. It's very simple to remember, right? Governance, government. What is democracy? By the people, for the people, right? So here, data ownership by the business, for the business, right? Having access to the right data at the right time at the right place. To achieve that goal, we need data governance. So we briefly touched upon it. We'll cover it in a little bit more detail in one of the sessions, just from a theoretical aspect, because there are jobs for just data governance jobs, data governance lead, or data governance analyst, those jobs are there. So even if you just know one thing out of this circle, like what is data governance, what all it includes, you have a job, right? Data governance analyst job. If you just know how to use Colibra, or if you have a little bit knowledge about Azure Purview, we talked about Purview as a data catalog kind of tool. So there are jobs related with that. Okay. So let's start from the top. Data modeling and design. Does anyone remember what we covered about data modeling? What are the 3 different types of data models? If I want to understand what all data is there, which type of data model will give me that 50,000 foot view, the big picture view?
These are conceptual, physical, and logical data model.
Perfect. Yeah. So as long as you can talk about 2 minutes about each topic, you'll clear the interview at least, right? So 2-minute thumb rule. So yes, conceptual data, logical data, physical data, that's data model. When it comes to storing data in a data warehouse, we didn't talk much about, I just mentioned it, but I really didn't go into the detail. There's something called as star schema and snowflake schema, but that is how do you model data in a data warehouse? What are fact, what are measures, what's the snowflake schema, what is the star schema? And there's a new upcoming way of modeling that data using a data vault. But we really didn't get into the details. But if need be, we could, because what is important is you understand the basics. As long as you know that, yes, you can model your data as conceptual, logical, physical. Are you hands-on? You say yes, but I'm not a data modeler, right? Because it's a very boring job. It's a very low-paying job. So that's why I would never want to get into it. But yes, I've built conceptual data models. So I think we touched upon that. That's good enough. But if you want to get into what's the star schema, snowflake schema, we can quickly wrap that up in half an hour as such. Next is data storage and operations. Kind of touched upon it, right? So the way previously data was stored was, it was stored in databases. It was stored on file shares. Now it's stored more on object storage, like AWS S3 or Azure Blobs as well. So that's how you typically store the data. And operations. So as part of operations is, how are you using that data as part of the operations, right? I'm not exactly sure what Dhamma meant by here. They have a large book. I read it in 2017, 18. So I don't exactly remember what it is, but if I vaguely remember, it's more about, the data policies. Like, is this confidential data? Is it, the confidentiality of your data? The data policies that govern the operations, right? That is one aspect of it. What they haven't elaborated in this circle is data ops. So many of you might be aware, there's a term called DevOps. If you were to extend the concept of DevOps to data, that's called data ops. So under the operations, it's really data ops. But Dhamma didn't mention anything about data ops because this is 2017. They haven't updated it since then. And practically no one actually uses it, right? This is very theoretical, but it's good to, take a look at it to see, when we are saying, we are the best, I want each of you to be the best data architect. So when you are the best, you need to know everything. So this is a good yardstick, a guideline to see if you are really the best. Do you know everything about each of these topics, right? So operations include, your data policies, such as data classification policies, your data archival policies. How do you deploy your data assets? So if you want to make a change to your database, how are you going to automate and deploy that change across different environments? So that's called data ops. There's another term called ML ops, for machine language ops. So all these data ops, ML ops, AI ops, all these operations are coming together to see how to efficiently manage and deploy these changes as such. But that was not the intention for Dhamma when they created it. But if I were to interpret it or put my perspective to keep it relevant still, that's what operations would practically mean. Okay. Data security. Did we cover anything related with data security? Does anyone remember anything? Think. Did we talk about PII?
Yes.
Yes.
So that is, about security data. And essentially, if you don't remember anything, just remember one sentence. Yes, I know data security because we encrypt the data at source using encryption technologies like AES-256. That's the name of the encryption algorithm. Most of the databases, they will use that encryption algorithm and encrypt the data. Whether you're storing the data in object storage like AWS S3 or Azure Blob, it will give you a setting saying, do you want to encrypt this data? So you really don't have to do much, but this is such a simple and easy topic, but many times people get scared, say, oh, I don't know this, right? But it's very easy. Two things. As a data architect, I always want to ensure my data is encrypted at rest using encryption technologies. And most of the data sources, they will support some data encryption technologies. So data encryption at rest and securing my data in transit. And the most easiest way to do that is using SSL, Secure Socket Layer. Or there's a protocol for it called TLS, Transport Layer Security. But in simple words, it's nothing but using an SSL certificate. So instead of you going to HTTP, you'll be going to HTTPS://. So if you go to any of the bank websites, you'll never see HTTP://. You'll go HTTPS:// HDBC, HSBC. Just look at it. So simple way to achieve data security. If you don't remember anything, just remember data encryption at rest and protecting your data in transit. Okay. I don't remember now if we covered data tokenization. Did we cover data tokenization? If not, we'll cover it. That even I don't remember if we covered it.
Just mention we can tokenize the data and whatever like PI data is there, so we can.
Okay.
And
What is important to understand the concept of tokenization? And the rest, there are tools to tokenize it. There's a tool called DataVant, DATAVANT. And, we use it as a data tokenization engine. But what is the concept of tokenization? That is important. So I'm not sure if we covered that. If not, we'll make sure we cover it in one of the sessions because that's pretty much it. And we covered PII as well. So that covers data security. Next is data integration and interoperability. Anyone wants to do a quick short recap? Ashish has already done it, but I prefer anyone else other than Ashish. So that way, all of you get an opportunity to speak and share your mind.
Yes, we covered this data integration. I am not sure if we have covered the second part, interoperability, but data integration, we covered tools like ways to move the data, how to move the data. Integrate is like where is the data moving? I mean, it is in transit system, everything, and what is the source of data from where we have to move that is internal, external teams. All these topics we had covered.
Very good, Anita. So we actually did touch upon interoperability. We talked about standards such as EDI standards in retail, SWIFT standard in banking, open banking. Those are some of the data interoperability models for some of the domains. And we also talked about, I think, FHIR, FHIR for healthcare. That's more prevailing. And there's for asset management, there was a standard. I'm forgetting it. I'll try to remember it next time. I think it is FM. I don't remember it, but I'll remember it. But that's what that interoperability is using industry-wide standards to exchange data.
I think we covered ITA, EDI, BAU.
EDI? Okay, perfect. Yeah. So EDI, if you're using EDI, that's an interoperability standard. Document and content management. We didn't cover that. And the reason is two reasons. One is, so what is document and content management? It's nothing but a piece of software which allows you to share documents. The most common software which is used for ECM, Enterprise Content Management, is FileNet, IBM's FileNet, FileNet. But essentially, you get incoming faxes, you get these documents, Word files, PDF files, you're storing them, and these ECM tools, they allow you to support a workflow revolving around that database. So you got this file, right? So if you were to mimic, an old Indian government office, how it worked, they would have paper-based files that will go from one desk to the other and so on. And if you're trying to mimic or digitize that workflow, blindly go for ECM solution, right? Because that's what it does. It enables workflows for your documents. When it comes to web content, there are different tools called WCM, Web Content Management. There are other tools called which are NoSQL type databases, which are used for managing your images and such. So those are also go with fancy names as such, where you have a data assets management platform, right? So they give different fancy names to it, but essentially it's a way to organize your unstructured data, such as images or documents as such. SharePoint is another good example, which is used for content management and knowledge search as such. Most of the time, the organizations would already have this, or they would hire a FileNet architect to do that, and IBM will provide a consultant. So it's good to be aware, but practically you won't get hired to work on a document management project as such, because very low complexity in terms of what it is, and they'll already have something. So good to be aware of, but that's probably not the main reason why they'll hire a data architect to lead that project as such. It will be quite expensive. So we didn't cover much because practically it won't be used, but now we covered it so you at least know what it means. Reference and master data. Does anyone remember what is master data? Did we cover that? That was covered in the second or third session.
MDM something we covered on that.
Yes, master data management, yes. So you've got federated data, you've got customer data across 3 data sources. You're creating a golden copy of that, and you're calling that as a master data. And there are master data management tools such as IBM InfoSphere, right? Cyperion. So most of the retail clients, or in fact, even banks, they will have some kind of an MDM tool, which will then feed to a CRM. So you have that golden copy. You have one place where you have all those federated or scattered attributes of that customer reflected at one place. So that's what master data is. I think you have access to the recordings. Go through it. Otherwise, any questions, we will cover it in depth as well. Reference data is nothing but static data. It doesn't change. Like there are different code sets, right? Like if you are in the stock market, the symbols for entities, that's called a CUSIP code. That's not changing. Airline code, the airport 3-digit letter codes, that's not changing, right? That's your static data. It doesn't change, but it's reference data. You need it for lookup, right? So that is reference data, and you can just dump it in a database as well. But usually MDM tools will manage reference data for you as well. Data warehousing and business intelligence, right? So we discussed, what is a data warehouse when we were discussing big data. So here, it doesn't talk anywhere anything about big data, but somewhere it kind of falls in that category, right? So we discussed Hive, we talked about Snowflake many times. What is data warehousing? I think we covered that, that organizations are moving from Teradata and Netezza to Data Lake, and then using cloud data warehousing tools such as AWS Redshift, Azure Synapse, Google's BigQuery, or the most prevalent, the leader in cloud data warehousing is Snowflake. So if you have Snowflake on your CV, don't worry about ever getting a job. You'll always have a job. Metadata, we briefly discussed technical metadata, business metadata. So I think Ashish had done a very good summary on that in one of the sessions. Data quality is remaining. Uh, Actually, I wanted to cover that today, but what we covered today is equally important. So in the next session, we'll cover data quality. And data architecture, we kind of covered that with event-driven architecture. We talked about CDC, we talked about Kafka. So we touched upon it as well. So if you look at from a big picture perspective, we've covered a lot of topics, right? I know it's very intensive, it's heavy, but you have to just revise it. But even if you haven't done it, that's okay, because once we do data quality, and what's missing, not missing in it over here, this is very data focused, but many times organizations will do a data and analytics strategy. So this circle has nothing to do with analytics. It doesn't really explicitly talk about data ops as such. One thing it doesn't mention over here is there's a tool called information lifecycle management. HP has that, right? Not every organization uses it, but if we have to be comprehensive and talk everything about data, then it should be there in this circle. But it doesn't talk anything about ILM, information lifecycle management tools as such. Uh, so that's pretty much, a very, very high level what all data architecture, data governance includes as well. So I hope this makes you feel confident that, whatever you've covered, we didn't leave out anything. We've covered more than what Dama is saying, and we have the practical aspect of it. Feel free to read the books. I don't want to discourage you, but I just want to make it easier for you and make sure you're using your time in revising what we've covered and remembering what all is there, because I've already gone through that route. I've read close to 60, 70 books just to understand big data and the evolution of big data when it was coming up. In 2017, I read about 50, 60 books. So I want to save your time because you already got a summary of big data. In terms of data architecture, I had to go through 10, 12 books to be able to understand what it is. So there is no one book which will give you everything. So you have to read a lot of books to get that understanding. So in the best interest of time, just go through all the sessions. If you can remember everything that's covered in the session, like Ashish takes notes, make your notes, share them if you want, right? And then, we'll see if there's any gap, we'll plug it. With that, that's all I wanted to cover today. I think we went a little bit over as well. We can cover, if time permits, if you all want to, we can cover another mind empowerment technique. It's up to you, whatever you tell me.
Yeah, I think it's good to have. Let's spend 5
Okay.
10 minutes on that, please.
Okay, great. So, what is so we've talked a lot of different techniques, right? What we want to emphasize on one of the techniques, we've already covered it. The way we have to look at it is, right, what is truly powering this biochemical machine, which we call it as a human body, right? It's nothing but a biochemical machine, very sophisticated, very advanced, but yet it doesn't have its energy source. The computer, right? It's an electrical machine. It's powered by electric machine and does those digital operations, binary operations, right? Very powerful. But the source of its power is electrical power. If you take out that plug from that computer, or if you turn off the switch, it's as dumb as a piece of rock. It can't do anything. But when that button is switched on, it can do Gen AI, it can do a lot of things. It can play YouTube for you. It can do amazing things. But what is important is, what is the source of that power? Electric energy. Similarly, this body is a biochemical machine, right? What is the brain? It's nothing. It has thousands of neurons, right, which are being activated through the work of enzymes. But what is the energy source for this biochemical machine? The true energy source for it is quantum energy, which we call it as the soul, right? And because we don't, in the past, we didn't have a good understanding of the origin of the soul, where does it reside, how it leaves energy from one body and goes into another body, we really don't know how to navigate the challenges in life. And the example we gave in the previous Mind Empowerment, it's like having a washing machine without a manual, where you don't know where the power button is, where the speed cycle is. So all we are doing is randomly clicking buttons here and there and hoping something will work, right? But once you have the operating manual for life, right? Once you know how to live, then it's life is amazing. It's the best thing that could ever happen. But if you don't know how to, what are those buttons and how to live, what are those principles and how it works, just like we have laws of physics, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. There are laws which govern the life. Everything that you do, everything, no exceptions, right, will have a response. The law of karma. Whatever you do will either have a good or a bad response, and it will come back to you. What you sow, so shall you reap. Everything that you say, right, starts with a thought. And this thought is powering what you do, how you do, right? So it's important to understand this operating manual to operate this biochemical, wonderful machine called the human body. But it's important to understand, just like any other, the true energy source for it is this tiny source of energy, right, which is situated in the hypothalamus part of the brain, and it is truly powering that body. It is not the body, right? Because when we cremate the body, we say this person is resting in peace now. So we don't say the body is resting in peace. The body is burned into ashes, right? We say rest in peace. So who's resting in peace? Right? The soul. But in reality, the soul is not resting in peace. The soul is taking another body and doing its work. So what is important is understand those rules of life, the operating manual of life, right? And the fundamental principle is what you think is what you will be. If you can manage your thoughts, what you say, what you do is fairly automatic. So there are four primary factors based on which how what you think. One is based on the sense organs. Whatever you see, you hear, you taste, it will create a thought. Right? Try it yourself. Right? You're eating something very sweet, right? Instantly, a thought comes of gulab jamun or something sweet that you've eaten in the past, right? The mind just instantly works that way, right? So the thought is created as part of that soul energy. So one parameter for thought is what it sees through the sense organs. Second is it's based on your past habits. What carries with that energy source from one body to the other is these deeply subconscious habits. People say nothing goes with you, right? Actually, that is not true. What goes with you are these deeply subconscious habits. In Hindi, we call it as sanskars. You carry that along with you, right? So year after year after year, that is accumulating and you're carrying it out with you. So that's how your personality and everything is influenced by your surroundings, but a lot of it is also influenced by your past collection of all these sanskars or deeply rooted subconscious habits. So one, sense organs. Second, your sanskars. The third is the environment. If you're sitting in an environment of silence and you're able to connect to the supreme soul, that's when magic starts happening, where your machine is in an auto cruise mode, right? In cars nowadays, you have a cruise control where you press the button, it's pretty much going and maintaining the speed by itself. Similarly, this wonderful human body also has a cruise option where you don't have to do overthinking and everything. You sit in silence and you submit everything to the supreme soul, right? That is a cruise mode. There's no worry. There's nothing to be done. Everything you're doing, that doesn't mean you sit idle and you don't do anything. You do everything with that simple objective that whatever you're doing, you have to do your best, but you never have to contemplate and try to manage and think about the output. Yes, you try your best with that output, but the output is predetermined, right? You cannot control the output, right? What is truly controlling that output is your secret invisible partner, right? So in Hindi, we say the simple sentence which is Karan Karavan Har. Karavanhar is Supreme Soul. You are just an instrument playing that role. With that mindset, and when you're sitting in silence, your life is on cruise control because you don't have to do too much, right? Because everything is there. Why worry, right? And the fourth is memories. Your thoughts are created based on memories. A lot of the times, if I tell you, what was the most happiest day of your life, a memory is triggered. Based on that memory, a thought comes in where you're replaying that memory. So it's very important to see, do you have a bank of hurtful memories, or do you have a bank of good memories, positive memories? Or what the Supreme Soul says is create a bank of divine thoughts which are based on your original personality. So we call it as a Swaman, right? So how you see yourself. In Hindi, we use the word Swaman for that. How you see yourself. You are a divine being. This energy is so powerful, right? That you see yourself with a lot of respect, with a lot of love. If you see yourself that way, your behavior, your thought will be generated that way based on that memory, that projection of that memory, and how you walk, how you say, whatever you do will be a reflection based on that Swaman or that future memory or the past memory. So memories have a powerful impact on how your thoughts are generated. So if you can control those four parameters, right? Essentially, you can control what is going on in your mind. And what is going on in your mind based on your level of knowledge, which is there in the soul, not the brain, right? You are making a decision on that thought, whether to act on it or not to do, or whether it's right or wrong. And then you will convert that outcome of that is a decision, whether you're going to say something or you're going to actually perform an act or you're not going to do anything. So if you want to have the best act, if you want to have the best words, it starts with the best thought. It starts with a divine thought. And if you can shut your senses, if you can have all positive memories, but most important, if you can sit in silence and make it as part of your life, you are more aligned with the universal energy, which is extremely powerful and positive. And your thoughts are going to be more divine. They are no longer going to be restricted about yourself and accumulating wealth and only about yourself, but your thoughts will be naturally inclined for the benefit of the universe. Because in reality, those thoughts are even not yours. Those thoughts come directly from the Supreme Soul through you, because now you've become a conduit, because you're not just thinking about yourself, but you're a channel to that energy source. So, practical tip is, when you are powering this body on in the morning, start with a minute of silence, at least a minute, if not 30 seconds. But be conscious that you are not the body. You're powering this body with silence. When you're shutting off this body at night before you go to bed, turn off that power button. Be thankful for everything that happened in the day. Be thankful for everything that didn't go according to your plan. Be thankful for things that were worse in the day. Be thankful for everything. Shut off this body with the silence. That way you will have good sleep, and you will feel that you're never alone all the time, but you will experience the power of this invisible force. In other words, we call it as the Supreme Soul. So this is again something to be experienced. Practice 30 seconds in the morning when you wake up, 30 seconds when you're about to go to bed. But more important, that 30 seconds gives you that sense of awareness that you are not this body restricted to the finite limits of this body, but you are something far more powerful. You are something a lot more capable. You are more divine than what you thought you were. But it starts with that first step of 30 seconds powering on the body in silence, powering off the body in silence. So it's a very simple, effective technique. Try it, share it, see if it helps you. It will calm your mind. And most important, you don't have to do all this heavy lifting and do overthinking. That, I hope this techniques helps you. We'll meet next week. Any questions, any feedback, most welcome to share and post it on the WhatsApp group. Thank you very much, all of you.